Welcome to the Ottawa Business Journal's live broadcast of Powering Ottawa's Future, Influence, Connect, and Grow. I'm Michael Curran from the Ottawa Business Journal. If you're joining us today, you've made a really good decision for at least two reasons, maybe three reasons if you count the ice rain storm going on outside. But the second reason, besides ice rain, would be that I'm genuinely excited about talking always about employment law and hardcore business issues, technology, office design. I'm excited by all of that. But today's show is really something unique for us and unique, I think, a little bit for a guest. The reason is because we're going to zoom out on what's happening in Ottawa, and then we're going to zoom in on the Ottawa Board of Trade. And to help us do that, I'm joined by one of the city's most high-profile business voices and key influencers. And let me set this up a little bit before we start. Ottawa is evolving fast. If you follow OBJ channels or what the Board of Trade is working on, I think we would all agree that the city is rapidly evolving. We often use the word city building, but there are key developments happening everywhere in all sectors and size of businesses. There's lots of reasons to be optimistic about Ottawa's future, but we're also faced with some big, important challenges around innovation, talent, AI, doing some proper city building, and also just making sure that Ottawa is a globally competitive place. So my question to you, if you're watching, is who is making sure that business has a strong voice at the decision-making table? We live in a society where all sorts of people and this is a good thing, get to express opinions that might be political, might be government leaders, nonprofits, trade and labor unions. But again, the question is, who is speaking for business? There's the question. I've got an answer. My answer would be the Ottawa Board of Trade. And that's who is in focus today. So let's get right into this. Today's speaker is someone who I certainly don't really need to introduce. We're often sharing a podium together at an event or at similar business type occasions. She is marking today her 6th anniversary as president and CEO of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Let's welcome her now. You might have guessed it. Here's Sueling Ching. Hey, Sueling. Hello, hello. There we go.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good. As I mentioned, Sueling, I was just thinking about this in prep, and you and I are often standing at the same podium. It might be a mayor's breakfast or the Bob's or City Building Summit. And people that are watching this here today might say, I've seen this. I've seen this show. And the honest answer is, if you're tuned in today, you're going to see something really unique. Often we're shining the focus or the spotlight, Sueling, elsewhere. And the purpose of today's show is really to shine the spotlight back on the Board of Trade. And I think it's a really important conversation. So thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Michael. And actually, I can't believe it took this long for us to do this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Right. We're often in the same meetings, on the same stage, talking about city building and economic growth. And I just want to say, and as I often do, how much I appreciate the work that you're doing at the Ottawa Business Journal and the partnership that we have together, and how you personally, as a business and community leader, are so involved in making sure that we have a bright future for our city. So it's an honor to be here with you today to talk about the work of the Board of Trade, the work that we do together, and it's going to be fun.
Yes, yeah, and let's, as I said, dive right into it. And we're going to just kind of warm up. We've got 3 themes that we'll be talking about in about 5 minutes' time. But I want to make sure, Sueling, that people understand some of the basics here. I'm a bit worried that we're going to jump right into some of the issues and the reasons to be a Board of Trade member. I'm going to ask the most simple question, and it's something that people might be wondering out there, like, what is a Board of Trade?
Sure. So, Board of Trade, or in some jurisdictions known as the Chamber of Commerce, which it has been in Ottawa as well before, is the oldest version of a business association in our entire globe. So, in every jurisdiction for centuries now across the globe, there's been a group of business leaders who've been advancing the issues of the day to ensure the economic well-being of the jurisdiction in which they live and work and lead. And so we're not-for-profit, nonpartisan, independent voice of business. As the Ottawa Board of Trade, our main advocacy work would be done at the local level, but we also work really closely with our colleagues at the Ontario and the Canadian Chambers of Commerce to do that same work for our business community at those levels of government.
You said a bunch of key words there, things like independent advocacy. We're going to get into that later, and I really want to unpack those words because they have a great meaning. But before we get into some of our themes again, I just want to check a couple boxes here as we're preparing to dive into this. I think particularly in Ottawa's bicentennial year, it's important to highlight the history. And we're not doing this for like historical trivia purposes, but tell us about the robust and rich history of the Ottawa Board of Trade.
So we'll be 169 years old, I think, this year. And so a long history of city building, advancing economic growth. I often say to our business leaders, people just like them were the ones that made sure that we, had clean water in the city, that made sure that we had garbage pickup, et cetera, have really built the city and continue to advocate at every level of government for policies that advance economic growth so that there is community prosperity as a whole. In Ottawa, what happened was when the city amalgamated with the surrounding municipalities in 2001, there were chambers of commerce in many of those smaller jurisdictions and that didn't come together until as recently as 2018, when we consolidated the Ottawa Chamber of Commerce, the Orleans Chamber of Commerce, and the West Ottawa Board of Trade into one, which is today known as the Ottawa Board of Trade. And so since then, we have been working very hard to elevate the advocacy work to strengthen the voice of business in Ottawa. And of course, the pandemic gave us a wonderful opportunity to do that. And so we are now looking toward what are the next opportunities for Ottawa's growth and how can the private sector, the business leaders, and our economic partners influence what is going to happen, work with and support decision makers at every level of government to make sure we have a really strong growth agenda.
I love both those points, and I'm just going to dig in on a couple of them. First, on that history point, obviously Ottawa is what it is because Queen Victoria decided it should be the capital of the country. But equally important, and we're not going to go too far back in history, but Ottawa was an industrial center. There were lumber barons, and after the lumber barons came industrialists. Even when you think of, Ottawa's first electrical system, it was actually like an entrepreneur that brought that to bear. The infrastructure of the city, the modern tech era in the 70s, 80s, and 90s that added all sorts of prosperity. And of course, the reason we're saying this, Sueling, is because Ottawa at times is overshadowed by the federal government, and we could never overstate the importance of that aspect of our local economy. But there is a flip side to that. And it is that flip side that really is connected with the Ottawa Board of Trade, because it's the entrepreneurs and the business owners that are creating the jobs, creating broad-based prosperity in our city, and that leads to all sorts of social good, whether it is, again, jobs or more prosperity or even more money, as the mayor often says, to support social programs, right? We need prosperity. So I think that's a really key point. And I think the Ottawa Board of Trade is always the flag bearer, if I can put it that way, of saying the business community is here, it's important, and without it, Ottawa wouldn't be what it is today.
Yeah, I mean, we can never discount, of course, the unique and beneficial position that we're in, being the seat of government for the whole country. And there are lots of things that we could go on about in terms of investments and funding that we have here. But there's two pieces. There's the private sector that drives the economy, number one. Having the government here in some ways has shaped what that private sector looks like. As you know, we have a white collar, highly educated talent pool here. We've been able to attract advancements in technology, research and development. So the government and the business community goes hand in hand for sure. And I've often heard it said since I came to Ottawa that there are two Ottawas in that way. But the future, I think, and in the past as well, has been what can the government and the business community do together to make sure that we're advancing one economic agenda, one future for the city.
And that's the key point, right? That it is, as we'll get into here, we'll start shifting into some of our themes. It is the Ottawa Board of Trade that is uniquely positioned to bridge that government, political leaders, and the private sector.
Mhm.
And last thing, and then we'll get right into our themes. I often get asked, or sometimes get asked, I should say, there's an Ottawa Board of Trade, there's an Ontario Chamber of Commerce, there's a Canadian Chamber of Commerce. So help people understand what the relationship is between those entities.
So they're all three separate entities, but we're part of the same network. I work very closely, particularly as a big city chamber. I work very closely with the other big city chamber CEOs across the country so that we are focused on areas that are unique to large urban areas. I also work closely with the Ontario Chamber. So there are many portfolios that are owned by the provincial government that certainly affect our local community, transportation, health, education. We just recently saw some movement on a file that we've worked on with the Ontario Chamber and our local post-secondary education institutions, where we saw additional funding, and happy to receive that here in Ottawa. So that would be an example. And then on the Canadian Chamber front, working with them on files that are national in nature, and including, trade enabling investments, much of the work that we've done over the last year around the tariffs and internal trade barriers, et cetera, is done through our partnership with the Canadian Chamber.
Yeah, it really is like a symbiotic relationship. And what I've observed from the outside, Sueling, is that, for example, if the provincial government is preparing its budget, then that Ontario Chamber will take the lead on policy recommendations, but they'll also make sure that feeds up through you. Same thing with the Canadian Chamber, as we saw during the pandemic and that. So I love the word that you're saying. It's a network for sure.
Mm-hmm.
We got a great agenda, so let's move into it. We're going to be focused on three key points in our Powering Ottawa's Future: Influence, Connect, and Grow. Our first topic that we're going to delve into in 1 minute is turning Ottawa's momentum into real business opportunity.
Mm.
After that, we'll be talking about connecting leaders where opportunity happens. And third, and this is where we kind of drive it home. So if you're watching this and you're like, you are a member, we've got a chat going, by the way, so we're trying to figure out who's a member, who's not a member. But in topic number 3, delivering measurable member value.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime around 12:25, 12:30 for our live audience, we're going to be fielding your questions. So if you're watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn, you can use those platforms. This is your unique opportunity to ask a question of Sueling. Sueling, let's go to topic number 1. Again, it's turning Ottawa's momentum into real business opportunity. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, so when we say that the Board of Trade is uniquely positioned, because we have a long history of advocating for the business community, because we do it with an inclusive, sustainable view in mind, and because we represent the interests of all sizes and sectors in the business community. That's what makes it unique, because when we're speaking to decision makers, they understand that at the heart of everything we do, it's not, there are no biases toward any one sector or any one issue, that we're looking at the broader picture. Ottawa right now, as you had said in your opening, Michael, we're at a moment in time where our economy is transforming. There are new opportunities being presented. We're seeing shifts in how our major downtown landlord and employer is behaving, and that being the federal government. And we're seeing the adoption of AI, changing where we're going. We're seeing big opportunities in health services, big opportunities in defense and security. And so as a business community, there's an opportunity for us to say, okay, do we have the infrastructure in place in order to leverage these opportunities? Do we have the right talent in place? Do we have infrastructure that is going to drive the housing, the transit, the placemaking that we need in order to attract the right talent to our community, to attract the right investment to our community? So some of the things that we would work on as a Board of Trade, for example, would be the downtown agenda. So over the last couple of years, we've really driven that downtown agenda, because we could see that during the pandemic, our downtown was uniquely and disproportionately impacted. And we know that it is a key asset for attracting young people, driving the visitor economy, and that the tax revenues from the downtown core impact the entire city as the economic and cultural hub of the whole region. Other opportunities we've been working on are around defense. We have been working with our policy council to make sure that the energy that we have access to can drive growth. We've also been looking at what our infrastructure investments are. And again, some of those decisions are made locally, but also at other levels of government. And what we know is that we've had a tremendous amount of population growth, and the current statistics show us as growing faster, at a faster pace than we first anticipated. So how do we ensure that those infrastructure investments keep pace? And then just generally speaking, where boards of trade and chambers of commerce have always operated is around business competitiveness, and whether the policies at every level of government are encouraging a competitive and predictable business environment in which our businesses can grow and continue to drive that economy forward.
I want to just highlight two things you said there. The Ottawa Board of Trade is independent, which I could also describe as politically neutral. But there's multi aspects, if you think about it, of the Ottawa Board of Trade being independent. Let's dig into this, because I think it's something, Sueling, that people really don't understand. That the Ottawa Board of Trade is not funded by any level of government, and in part, that's what allows the Board of Trade to be neutral and to advocate in a very pure, unadulterated way, if I could put it that way, on behalf of members. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So the organization is fully funded by the members. So those are membership dues. Those are pillar partners who have allowed us to elevate our advocacy work over the last few years by contributing at a higher level. Those are programs and events that we run. So that's how we generate revenue. I will also say a huge resource for the Board of Trade is the time, energy, and expertise of our member volunteers. So our board of directors are all volunteers. Members of our committees are volunteers as well. So we really are a platform or a mechanism for us to harness the collective will, insight, ingenuity, resilience that business leaders bring to their businesses every day, and use that toward ensuring that we have the policies, the city building priorities in place in order to make sure that Ottawa grows to be the best city it can be.
Okay. And let me just make another point. I'll throw the question back at you. And before I say this, let me just first state that there are lots of local business organizations. I think that my question is going to be to the uniqueness of the Board of Trade. So we've got a construction association, we've got the Builders, Owners and Managers Association, we've got Invest Ottawa, we've got Ottawa Tourism, we have KNBA, we have other BIAs. The other unique aspect besides being independent is what I would say your holistic view. So the holistic view of the Ottawa Board of Trade, or sometimes I call it the umbrella. So you're not just responsible for construction or tech or tourism. The Ottawa Board of Trade is always trying to take the big picture. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's 100% right. And we've been told by government decision makers that is what changes our view when we're bringing forward our recommendations. And so what we do is we actually have an approach of working very collaboratively with all of these other organizations and associations so that we have a deeper view into what some of those issues are. And so that collectively we can be working toward the same goals. Ottawa Tourism has a very specific mandate. Invest Ottawa has a very specific mandate, and we're able to harness those mandates, marry them with things that we're hearing directly from the business community, and then other associations that might go a lot deeper into pieces like the housing, for example, and bring that all together into sort of one vision and help prioritize where we should be placing our focus.
We're running a little long on this, but I don't want to give up on this topic because there's one other thing I just want to make sure that is absolutely clear to everyone watching today, Sueling, and it is some of the examples. So I think it's interesting to say that. I think there are real examples. So I'll just throw these ones out there and get your feedback to it. So again, when Ottawa's downtown emptied out, there's no one organization besides the Ottawa Board of Trade that was going to bring people around the table, talk to government leaders, high-level bureaucrats, politicians, other economic development, business leaders, of course, landlords, tenants. That was uniquely the Ottawa Board of Trade that needed to do that.
Yeah.
Also, another example, when Lansdowne Park needed some advocacy, there was just a major decision from the city of Ottawa. And I would say that there were a lot of opposing voices, and someone needed to make sure that growth agenda point was made. That was the Ottawa Board of Trade. And then kind of the historic one, since it's your 6th anniversary, is when politicians needed direct input around the pandemic, around closures and regulations and this and that and wage subsidies and all that type of stuff. That was the Ottawa Board of Trade. So I want to make sure that people watching here at Sueling don't think these are kind of highfalutin statements. There are very real examples where it is uniquely the Ottawa Board of Trade that needs to take a lead on some of these business issues.
And I mean, we work with these partners, with these decision makers, including every level of government, because they understand that by working with the Board of Trade, they're able to bring together the various sectors and voices of business leaders to use that information in their decision making. So there's nothing more powerful than having that level of influence as a business community, and that's why we take our mission so to heart.
That's the perfect segue. Thank you for that. For topic number 2, and this is the second theme we're going to dive into here, which is connecting leaders where opportunity happens. Explain to all of the viewers how the Ottawa Trade advances that concept.
Yeah, so I alluded to it a little bit, Michael, already, is that we bring together the key business and community leaders that we need to in order to drive the proper agenda. We have many ways of doing that. You and I work together to host several events, including the Mayor's Breakfasts, where we bring in important and relevant keynote speakers. We host the City Building Summit as an example. Over and above that, the Board of Trade host summits on key areas around energy, downtown we've just done. We have an infrastructure and one coming up as well. So all of those those events, and then we host roundtables directly with decision makers as well. And then we have a series of policy councils where business leaders come together and maybe go deep on like one subject, like energy, like infrastructure, housing, etc.
Yeah.
So those are ways, and then the membership in general, right, is always connected to us. And so those are the ways in which we bring in the business insights, help us prioritize what we should be recommending to the government. And it's sort of the flip side of the first part is like we're making the recommendations and we're doing that based on all of the opportunities that we provide for our members to influence what those priorities, those programs and policies are.
We should take a second here to give a shout out to Erin Benjamin, who recently joined your team. She's going to be, Erin, probably known to many of the viewers as advocating for live musicians, live music venues, so on and so forth. She's joined your team and she's going to be working on a policy, some of the policy forums. When I think of an example of this, Sueling, and maybe you could share this story a little bit, I think of some of your Queen's Park days. So that's an example where I think that, Ottawa leaders come together around the Board of Trade. They identify very real business issues where we need some change or some evolution at a political level. And I don't think people know this. Like you and your many of representatives of OBOT actually go to Queen's Park and you sit across the table from the premier and he listens to your priorities. Do you want to share a little bit of what happens in a scenario like that?
Sure. So that would be one example. Thank you for sharing that. Where, yes, 30 of us from Ottawa, including the mayor, including the president of the Ottawa Tourism and Invest Ottawa and the Ottawa Airport and many other business leaders, we came together with an agenda, went to Queen's Park to talk about what was important to Ottawa. We do that kind of work, Michael, through one-to-one meetings like that. We often have ministers into our office when we pull in top business leaders in a certain sector so they can hear directly from those business leaders what's important to them, where the opportunities are to work together. It could also just be a presentation, a letter that we would submit, media interviews that we do. These are all the ways in which we build out our advocacy agenda so that we can keep top of mind the things that are most important to Ottawa's future.
Yeah. And, when we throw around terms, like advocacy, I wanted really to drive that point home because, again, just to kind of complete the picture as you're talking about it, you're bringing local business leaders together around policies, you're formulating those policies, but that advocacy is happening in a very real way when you're sitting across from the premier at Queen's Park and saying, Premier, these are some of the concerns the business community has. What can we do to address them? Yeah. And I think, again, some of those discussions are confidential, but there are examples of very real movement on some of these issues when you're speaking directly to someone like the premier or for that matter, a federal minister.
Yeah. And so we bring forward, like we talked very specifically about safety and security support. We talked very specifically about transit support. When we were at Queen's Park, we talked very specifically about energy. Like those were specific things. But the overall message is that Ottawa is the nation's capital. Ottawa is the second largest city in Ontario, a key economic driver for our provincial government. And so that we are open to working collaboratively and that we expect to work collaboratively for Ontario's economy and for Ottawa's economy.
That's great. We're going to shift into our third topic, which is the one where I said we're really driving it home. Because if you're watching here and whether or not you're a current member of the Board of Trade or you're not a member, future member, I think is what we call them, Board of Trade, I want to talk to you about, so I think we've talked conceptually a little bit in topics 1 and 2, Sueling, about what the Board of Trade is, what advocacy means, what its independence, what its holistic vision means. Let's talk about measurable member value. That's the topic number 3. What does that mean to you when you think about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, every business in Ottawa is encouraged to become a member of their local Board of Trade. And in the first two segments, Michael, we're really talking about what this unique value proposition is to make sure that you have a strong voice of business in our city to influence some of those priorities and decisions that we're making recommendations on at every level of government. And so that is what we are uniquely positioned to do. But over and above that, we also have lots of opportunities for members to drive their business directly by saving money, by making the right connections, by learning information, having access to unique opportunities and programs, and developing their team members as leaders. So there's a lot of ways where there's a direct and immediate benefit back by investing in a membership in the Board of Trade, over and above the fact that we have the ability to shape what that business environment looks like today and into the future.
Yeah, and I think the Board of Trade does an interesting job at balancing those two things. So the policy and the advocacy and the coming together and the networking, but then you've got lots of programs to help people save on the bottom line, so on and so forth. All right, it's 12:30 if you're watching us live, and we've got a bunch of questions, Sueling. Of course, none of these are vetted, so you're on the hot seat.
Okay.
So I'll try to scroll through some of these, and thank you everyone for participating. Some of them are longer, but I'll point a few out. And I think, perhaps you've got a comment on some of these. This one's very long, so I'll summarize it. It's someone that works for a CEO and digital marketing company, and they're saying they'd love to see the Ottawa Board of Trade help businesses adopt AI and best digital practices. I think that is a topic that's on your radar. Certainly AI adoption, you referenced it off the top. Any other comments, Sueling, on that?
Yeah, so we've just released our newest strategic plan. One of the pillars of that plan is how we can elevate our support directly to businesses in attaining the information, the support, and the education they need for business fundamentals. And one specific, of course, is AI adoption. So what we know from the work that we've done with our colleagues at the Canadian Chamber is that in Canada in general, we could be faster in our businesses adopting AI, and that would significantly shift the productivity. And one of the greatest opportunities for that to happen is to work through a trusted organization like the local Chamber or Board of Trade. So that is something that we're working on very aggressively to provide opportunities for our member businesses.
Yeah. Maybe the other thing I'd add, this is an anonymous LinkedIn user that made the point too, that the Board of Trade is a robust and growing team. But the Ottawa Board of Trade is still a relatively small team. So if you feel as a business leader that you've got a lot of expertise in AI or in digital adoption, this is exactly the appeal that's being put out there. Become a member, join a policy council, and see what you can do. So I think one of the key things we want to underline here is that it's the Ottawa Board of Trade does not count its staff members in the dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens or hundreds. So it is a lean in and get involved type approach.
For sure. And Michael, I'll also say that, our success has come from our ability to leverage our members and their expertise. And so when we look at doing any new programs such as this, that's where we're looking.
Yeah. So it is, as you said, a member-driven organization. So that's the key point. So if you're really passionate about something, get involved. I want to give a shout out to Larry Moore, who's saying, thanks for all the hard work you do on behalf of the business community. He's saying it's thankless trying to herd cats. I don't know if you agree with that sentiment, but it's kind of a funny one. To get more involved, what are some of the committees that small business could get involved in? So if you're watching this and you're a small business owner or senior manager, Sueling, what are a couple of examples of how someone could get involved with the Board of Trade?
Thank you. So what I'll say is that it's not thankless. We're very excited about how passionate everybody who is actively involved with our organization is, and it is a skill set because it's complex. Some of the work that we do, committees are some of them are. Advocacy, economic development, the membership committee. We have an ambassador committee that helps new members get acclimated to the things that we have to offer to maximize their benefits. We often have roundtables, so not committees, but one-off roundtables. So we go out to members when those opportunities arise. And then, Michael, I would even just say, getting involved by coming out to our events. There are a lot of connections to be made, either directly with our team and or some of our volunteers. So a lot of those opportunities arise that way as well.
Yeah, I like that point. Again, just you're spitballing on some of these, so I don't know if you have something to add. Alexia Nadeau, hello, Alexia, thanks for being here. She's a bit concerned about major cuts to post-secondary programs and how it might affect the local workforce. I'll let you answer the question, but the one thing I will say right away, Alexia, is that we're often seeing people like Claude Brûlé, the president of Algonquin College, or other post-secondary leaders at our events. They're talking directly to you and I about what's happening. So at the very least, right, the lines of communications are very open between what we call PSIs and the Board of Trade, Sueling.
Yeah, so we're grateful for and take advantage of, if you will, or leverage the relationships that we have with the presidents of the local post-secondary education institutions. We consider their network to be foundational to the economic agenda in Ottawa. We have worked closely with them and advocated hard on the changing of the formula and funding programs so that they can deliver the programs that we need to educate the talent for the jobs of the future. Some of the cuts that were made to programs, we are aware of their decision-making processes. We understand their challenges, and there's still work to do with the provincial government to support that system. And then looking to as well, Michael, and this is one of those opportunities to marry a broader public sector and private sector leader, is that some of those programs could be delivered by private sector organizations as well. And you and I've met many of them through the Talent Summit that we do every year as well. So it's about making the connections. It's about driving a strategy, understanding what the future vision is for our city, and aligning our priorities to that.
Yeah, I like it. Again, put a quick shout out. Aaron Benjamin's watching, the newest member of your team. Aaron, as we indicated, is going to be involved in lots of your policy councils. Is that right, Sueling?
Yeah, so Aaron will be the architect and the steward of a lot of the policy work that we do in our advocacy agenda, and she's been an active part of our network. So we are excited to bring her on board. And I will say, Michael, like over the last 6 years or so, we have continued to build up the capacity of the local Board of Trade here in Ottawa, something that, maybe had not been prioritized before. And so we've made some great hires. We have brought in some very passionate volunteers. And so continuing to build that capacity up.
Yeah. And I'll just quick to ring in on that, and I'll say this carefully as well. You had referenced the evolution from what I would call regional chamber of commerce, meaning like neighborhood, like Orleans, Canada, Nepean, so on and so forth. And those were good, and people did hard work there. I think what I've observed, and you can agree or disagree, is that having a central chamber of commerce, Ottawa Board of Trade, has allowed you to level up in terms of the people on your team and what can be achieved. So the reality is, if anyone watching was from that Orleans Chamber, and I was a former president of the Orleans Chamber, if you go way back in history, I think those organizations quite literally sometimes are run by a part-time person or one full-time person. Well, you can't expect small organizations like that to do a lot of serious policy thought, advocacy. There's shoestring operations in the Board of Trade. It's very exciting to see people like Aaron and Kara and Stephanie and everyone else that's coming on board at the Board of Trade. Just to make sure you feel it's not a thankless job, there are several people chiming in with comments like this. I appreciate, well, I didn't forget about me. It's all about Sueling today. I put that on screen for Sueling, not me. But there's a lot of people chiming in here, Sueling, just saying, thank you for what you do. It's appreciated. Maybe the last comment I'll throw on, great strong team. That's right, Chris. A great strong team and an even stronger team. So kudos to Sueling for strength of team. In business, we know that's a key component. Maybe I'll give the last on-screen comment here to someone well, Suzanne, who's been a strong advocate. I think she might have been an ambassador, for the Board of Trade. The ambassador is a volunteer job, by the way. If people aren't familiar, this is not a paid job. One of the volunteers thing, but saying, Sueling, for all your hard work, must be a member. Yeah, that's right. Entrepreneurs must be a member. Networking and opportunities are amazing. Maybe I'll throw that question at you, Sueling. Something that I've observed over the years. Sometimes someone will hear about the Board of Trade and say, you know what, I'm going to become a member. And then they might make the mistake, Sueling, of being passive about that membership, meaning I'm just going to sit back and not go to an event or learn about the programs or go to a policy. If you become a member of the Ottawa Board of Trade, I think getting active is the key trigger for value.
Well, Michael, because our members are so diverse, right? It's about what is their expectation when they join. So we have some members who just understand that it's very important that Ottawa has a strong voice of business. They may not currently have the time or the need to get involved in any other way, but they're just more passive, perhaps, supporters. And then those that are looking to build their business, their connections, their own information, they might come out to some of the events, they might join a council table, etc. And then others that are very interested in having a strong influence on the recommendations that we make, the policies that we put forward. Their activity in what we're doing might be even more elevated. So it's really about what people are looking for from the membership. But if I could say, at minimum, the credibility of the organization, the capacity of the organization to drive forward smart policies, a growth agenda, will come from every member of the business community supporting the Board of Trade in some way.
That's absolutely right. And of course, we want to see people being very active. But even if they don't have the time to attend all the events, you should know that the Ottawa Board of Trade is on a day in and day out basis advocating for the policies that make this city more robust, that make our province and country more competitive. We're well into overtime here, Sueling. And the crazy thing is, we've now talked for 40 minutes about the Ottawa Board of Trade, and I feel we've only started scratching the surface on some of the real value. So we're going to put a graphic up on a screen here that allows people to know where to go to get more member information. But any final thoughts? What's the final pitch, I guess, here, Sueling, on if someone's watching this and finally going, okay, wait a second, I'm starting to understand this. We're peeling back the onion. This is making a bunch of sense. I need to, as an entrepreneur, business owner, I need to invest and become a member. What's the next step?
Well, first of all, thank you, and happy to do part 2 in this because this was super fun today. Yeah. I appreciate it. I often say, every member of the business community does benefit from the work of the Board of Trade, but the more that we invest, the more that we can do together. And particularly right now, the last 6 years, Michael, have been a crisis mode, a lot of it, between the pandemic, the economic recovery, when Trump got in last year, started talking about the tariffs. And I think what I've seen, especially over the last year, is a movement among business and community leaders to say that we have a role and responsibility for owning our own future and deciding how we shape this city, this region, and our country, particularly as the nation's capital. And so I'm seeing more and more business leaders getting involved with that mindset. And so if if you're a small business, you can come in at a level that makes sense for you. We have larger businesses, that are supporting us at a greater level so that we can amplify this work at this important time, at this important moment in our city and in our country. So room for everyone.
Absolutely. And just to reiterate, there is a range of ways you can get involved. So if you're a smaller company, a solo entrepreneur, you can get involved there, all the way up to what you call your pillar partnerships, where larger organizations that need to drive home potentially a particular policy point can really engage and leverage the Board of Trade. But the key thing is, the more members there are, the more influence the Board of Trade can have. So that is a key factor that we hope everyone remembers. Listen, Sueling, this has been a ton of fun. Again, we're often speaking together, but the spotlight is on others at the stage. So I'm really happy that we could shine the spotlight on the Board of Trade. And I hope we move the needle a little bit in helping the business community and others understand the unique role of the Ottawa Board of Trade. Thanks for what you do in the community.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. We're going to sign off. Just as we do, a reminder that you can visit obj.ca. So one of the things OBJ does, we're not the same as the Board of Trade. We're kind of the news and information and data partner of the Ottawa Board of Trade. But as a entrepreneur, as a business owner, it's super important that you are informed. That's the role that OBJ plays. Go to our website, obj.ca website every day. I highly recommend. There are thousands of people that rely on our weekday email newsletter, OBJ Today, to get a quick summary of what happened in the city. You could follow us on LinkedIn. I think we're up to 43,000 followers. And if you're on YouTube, do me a favor right now and click the red subscribe button and the little bell icon. When you do that, you'll be notified when we're live. Thanks for watching, and a big thanks to Sueling Ching and everyone at the Board of Trade that helped make this show a success. Let's keep building a better Ottawa. See you soon. Bye-bye.